We're Batman at 89. Hello and welcome once again to Batminute 89, the show that thinks a nice glass of the fizzy stuff is in order as we hurtle towards the end of Tim Burton's Batman. I am one of your hosts, John Parker.
And I am the other host, Niall McGowan.
Yes, and we are joined by very special guests. Today we have Brad and Eric of Flash Gordon Minute.
Hello, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm very excited. Love this movie. Very excited to be part of this.
I kind of have to fight the impulse to be like to Flash Gordon up your intro and be like, Brad and Eric, just make it extra dramatic.
Now I'm going to have to sing that.
This is the thing with doing Flash Gordon Minute, in especially the first few minutes, because they play that song so much at the beginning, and then all of a sudden you just walk around with that stuff stuck in your head all the time. It's like, hey, can I have a coffee?
Yeah, that theme song has been in my head for the 2 months we've been recording this show almost every day.
I think it's been in my head since I first saw the movie when I was about 3. So, yeah. Can't get rid of it. But yes, welcome to minute 117. Good God. This is the last full minute of live action, isn't it, Niall?
And then we're back,
and the
clawed into the darkness of the credits next week.
Yeah, we're all the way back there where we started. This minute starts with the illuminated visage of a devilish demon, and it ends with Vicki and Alfred heading off together into the night. So, not on a date, may I point out.
Well, you don't know what happens.
I mean, he does say Mr. Wayne's going to be delayed. Who knows what the two of them are going to do?
So I'll fill in.
Kim Basinger was so beautiful in this scene, and I remember when this movie came out, and Kim Basinger became the biggest thing on the planet for like a 2-3 year period. She was never able to follow up on it, but just a stunningly beautiful woman. And it was also great because this is one of the few minutes where she's just not screaming.
Got something else to do. Yeah, we've been won over by her as we've gone through this movie. It turns out she's actually a pretty good actress. We were very surprised because we both assumed, oh no, she's just a model.
Yeah, she managed to go on to win an Oscar, a mere 8 years later. So fair play to her.
No, she won the Oscar for, what was it? L.A. Confidential. And it was just so crazy because it's, when you say it's only 8 years later, it's crazy where she goes from sort of wide-eyed ingenue-ish damsel in distress lead actress. And 8 years with L.A. Confidential, she was obviously still beautiful, but she was sort of being played as a little bit past her prime. And it doesn't seem like too long after that she was playing Eminem's mom in 8 Mile.
Yeah.
Oh God, I completely forgot about that. Oh, that's upsetting. No, one of the beauties.
I guess it's the way Hollywood works. It's just like, hey, nope, it's been 10 years. You're old now. You're back into get on to playing moms.
And she was, and it's not like this was her first role. She had been doing movies for a while already. Sort of infamous for the movie 9.5 Weeks with Mickey Rourke and No Mercy with Richard Gere. I mean, she'd done quite a few movies, but this is like she peaked. But it seems like that it was weird how quickly that peak turned into like her playing moms and on the other side of their youth prostitutes.
Yeah, but this actually is like I guess we'll probably mention her again in the credits, but this is like the last minute we have of Kim Basinger, like me and John, because next movie, she's out, she's gone. So, and then of course, you did make a note that she came off, the movie before this was My Stepmother is an Alien. And then she went on, after this, she starred in a movie called The Marrying Man, straight like in 1991.
With Alec Baldwin. Her then husband, Alec Baldwin.
Is that where they met?
That is where they met.
Yeah, because she went through a period of dating Prince as well, you see. So, but then, The Marrying Man, 10% on Rotten Tomatoes. So, don't know if I can really recommend that one.
To me, that's a sign of quality. That's a movie I want to watch. If it's that low, I'm intrigued.
She's got two good facial expression moments that I picked out here. That first, when she looks up at the signal, she gets like this kind of little smile, like, oh, that's my boyfriend. But then she enters the shadow and her face kind of gets a little more concerned, like, what have I gotten myself into? And as like you said, her character's gone by the start of the next movie. So clearly the concerned part of her won out over the excited part of her.
Oh, yeah. No, I thought the same thing. Like, because when she walks away, it kind of appears to me like it dawns on her maybe that she's already kind of lost him. Like she's always going to be second. Yeah. And she kind of knows and accepts that. And I think she knows it's over. It's not really going to go anywhere.
When this movie was made, when Batman, we were still very much in the James Bond sort of view of lead actresses in these movies, where it's like every movie's going to have that romantic interest, but they will be gone by the next film. And in every James Bond, I think without exception, no lead actress has really made it into the next movie. Sometimes, and rarely are they even mentioned in subsequent movies. So I don't know if it was ever a thought of them bringing back Vicki Vale more. I mean, aside from that, he just very, very briefly mentions her in the next film. Was there plans to bring Kim Basinger back?
I can, in fact, answer this because, we do get a brief mention of Vicki in Returns when Bruce is on a date with Selina Kyle, and it mentions like, oh yeah, well Vicki thought, and then she's like, oh, was it Vicki ice skater or stewardess, and she has a very dismissive attitude towards her. But as is, there was an original Sam Hamm draft for this movie. There is an original Sam Hamm draft of Batman 2, as it's called. And holy crap, is it a different movie. It is insanely different. It only has Catwoman and the Penguin in it. And that's kind of a lot of where the similarities end, really. And it's set at Christmas.
It's going to be difficult to bring it up minute by minute, actually, isn't it? Because how do you compare them?
Well, I think we'll have to probably go through the entirety of it in like a special episode or something, maybe. But within that sequel, Vicki Vale was still very much a part of the plotline. She was Bruce's girlfriend as the events were unfolding around him. There's a scene actually where she and Selina Kyle cross paths. And not to dwell on the pun too much, but things get a bit catty between them because Selina's sort of draped over Bruce Wayne at a museum gathering. And actually had a little bit of the script here where Bruce says like, "Oh, Selina Kyle, my friend Vicki Vale," and Selina goes, "Oh, the photographer. I've seen your pictures in the Gazette." And Vicki goes, "The Globe." "Oh, that's right, the tabloid one. What an original dress," Selina says back to her. And then, Bruce is like, "Oh, Selina supervised the reconstruction of the temple, blah, 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 blah." And then Vicky's like, "Oh, really? She must be awfully tired. How did you get in charge of such a huge project like this?" And then Selina goes, "It was easy. I slept with the Pharaoh," and gives her like a little seductive wink. There's a whole bunch of stuff here that you would need to know the context of the actual script, where in that version, Selina Kyle is like some sort of museum, archaeological expert and whatnot. It's an insanely different script. But at the end of that movie, that version of it actually has the Penguin and Catwoman make their way into Wayne Manor, where Vicki and Alfred are, and they've sussed out everything, basically. They attack Bruce, and they take Vicki and Alfred hostage, take them down to the Batcave, and then at that point, the Dick Grayson shows up, and he sort of gets Bruce, much like the original draft of this movie. So it gets steps in to save things. Bruce intervenes, and then at the end of that film, it actually ends in the tatters of Wayne Manor with Bruce Wayne proposing to Vicki Vale, and that's the way Sam Hamm, he had a much more optimistic view of this relationship. Whereas then of course Tim Burton came along, and I think a lot of the word is we'll obviously get into it in a much deeper fashion with the next movie. But apparently, due to some of the hardships he had on filming this one, and due to the immense success of this movie, the studio went like, "Look, we'll take a back seat a bit more. You obviously know what you're doing. You make whatever movie you want to make." And because he sort of had a bit of a sour grapes about his experience here, he kind of wanted to separate Returns from the original as much as possible. And so, therefore, Vicki Vale straight out the door, pretty much. So,
it's a shame because you said the word hopeful there, I believe. And I was thinking, although we just discussed that the look on her face is maybe she realizes it's not going anywhere, are we, as the viewer, meant to feel hopeful that Alfred is there waiting for her to collect her? Because I wasn't too sure.
I think we are, because after she gets in the car and when she tells Alfred, I'm not surprised, after he tells her he's going to be late, she gets this, she has another facial expression where I wouldn't go so far as to say she's turned on, but she's very intrigued, and she makes like this kind of side-to-side jaw movement that's sort of like, all right, yeah. So, it seems like, she's on the fence, but, the final facial expression is definitely one of, I think, a positive facial expression of how she feels about Bruce.
Yeah, like she's at least gonna give it a shot, is the kind of impression I get. Like, we'll try and make this work.
Yeah. Should mention as well that at this point of the film, there was in fact a deleted scene that was fully filmed and you can get pictures of. And it's very strange because they obviously refilmed quite a bit of it, because Kim Basinger is in a completely different outfit. She's wearing like an entire like white ensemble with a big wide white brimmed hat. But yeah, has her walking, down the streets, and she bumps into a bunch of kids dressed up as Batman. Like this says, she looks down to see two little boys dressed in homemade Batman costumes, and the little boy says, "Sorry, lady, we was playing Batman." And they take off past her. She looks after them, smiling. And they go, that's you get a bit of the legacy of Batman starting to take hold. Obviously, another thing that Tim Burton wasn't too keen on, because as we covered with, there was another deleted scene with a small child in it. That got cut. And they cut this as well, because it's apparently...
all the kids, get rid of them.
He's just like, I hate kids, just get them out of here. Just get them out of the damn movie.
So Tim Burton then does not like the end of The Last Jedi then?
No.
That'll be his worst nightmare, that.
I'm with Burton on this. I don't think Batman as presented in this movie is the guy that kids want to dress up as. I think he should be him as a mysterious, in the shadows, scary character. He should be the ghost story that kids tell each other, not, I'm going to wear my homemade Batman outfit. He's not Captain America, where at the end of the first Captain America movie, the kids are walking around with their own like trash can shields with the colors painted on it. He's not supposed to be an inspiring character. He's supposed to be a nightmare that for the denizens of Gotham, especially at the first movie. 2-3 movies in, you can have the redemption where people sort of fall in love with a character and slowly pull out of that nightmare character and more into someone a little more inspiring. But that's he's not Superman. I love in the Superman movies whenever they have there's the kids all wearing the red towel wrapped around their neck because they all want to be Superman. Nobody should want to be Batman. Everyone should be just scared that they run into Batman when they're doing the wrong thing.
If they knew anything about his life as well, as we've seen throughout this movie, you don't really want to be Batman. He's got a sad, lonely kind of existence. He's got one track mind. All he does is Batman stuff. He can't be a normal man. He can't live. He can't even have a girlfriend properly. Look.
Yeah, he's in that gigantic estate, and it's him and his butler. It's just this giant empty house with nothing going on.
Oh, it's depressing.
Yeah, but we'll note that as well in that Batman 2 draft, there does have another similar element in that Catwoman and the Penguin frame Batman for murder at one point. And apparently all the shops of Gotham have been stocking Batman paraphernalia because, he's the legend of Gotham now. And apparently it makes a note in that script that they take down his stuff and put in Simpsons stuff, which is... I mean, that kind of works for me and John because we talk about The Simpsons half the time we're on this show. But I can't imagine Tim Burton just like looking at that script and then been like, okay, I'm just gonna go over here and just go into a big open fire and just like throwing it on, and he's just like, nope, that's I accidentally dropped your script into the fire, Sam. Sorry about that.
I just say that's interesting that two of those ideas then from this Batman 2 script you mentioned ended up in later Batman movies. Yeah, at the end of then the next one, Batman Forever, Riddler and Two-Face invade Batman Manor or the Batcave. And then the whole Batman Frame for Murder ends up in the Chris Nolan trilogy many years
That's
later.
interesting. I mean,
So Sam Hamm was a bit ahead of his time.
Oh, they lifted quite a few things from this one, didn't they? No.
Yeah, it's like some people would say ahead of the time. Some people will say he was robbed blind by later people. And he's probably quite embittered by it. But yeah, the idea though of any kind of public love of Batman is always weird, because even at the end of The Dark Knight Rises, when they unveil that big statue of him, always, even at the cinema at the time, I was like, "Oh, no, that's not right. You shouldn't have a bat signal up there. That's okay, but an actual statue of him, is a bit much.
See, I'm not keen on it myself, but if you're gonna do it, if you insist on making that part of it, I would rather that was much further into the franchise. You don't want to start putting stuff like that in the first movie. That doesn't work for me. It's too early for people to be into Batman. Because as we've seen in this, he's quite new to doing this.
Yeah. Well, also, two things. First, instead of a statue, it works great if there would be graffiti on the wall that's like an homage to Batman or something like that, where sort of an underground thing.
Yeah.
And also, I don't want, especially the Tim Burton world of Batman, I don't want The Simpsons to exist there. I don't even really want there to be TV.
Yeah, it feels like a different world, doesn't it? This set of movies.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. Well, then, I mean, the Schumacher movies would have been.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. In the Schumacher world, The Simpsons is a documentary. But one of the things I noticed was what I loved about Tim Burton's just whole concept of Gotham was it's such a weird mix of old and new and all these things tied together, where the car that Alfred picks Vicki Vale in is an old style car, and it doesn't look at all out of place, and the police uniforms are definitely taken from a different era, but they still have TV, and they still have, and that's what Burton is so good at doing, is just creating this ground up world that doesn't belong anywhere. So if you would say this movie takes place in the 50s with some futuristic television and stuff, I would believe it. If you say it takes place in modern day but with some old-timey touches, I'd believe it too. And that's what keeps this movie from feeling too dated. I mean, and I remember that some people actually thought this movie wasn't going to be successful, and it was big. What was considered to be a big budget at the time, and some critics are actually referring to this movie as Batman the Duck. Because the most recent comic book movie to come out before this, which had a similar budget, was Howard the Duck, and they were actually using that as an example of why a comic book movie wouldn't work, especially one with this budget. So it's like, it's just another Howard the Duck. And of course, the problem with Howard the Duck wasn't that it was a comic book movie, because no one considered that a comic book movie. The problem was it was terrible.
Can I make a public admission? Can I make a public admission right now?
Oh yeah.
I like the movie Howard the Duck.
Like genuinely like it, or ironically?
I used to watch it growing up. It was on HBO all the time, and I watched it over and over again. And I know I haven't seen it in many years now, so I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't hold up now, but I have very fond memories of laughing at that movie.
Oh, don't go back and watch it now.
The thing is, though, like, I am currently staring at a small Funko Pop of Howard the Duck that John bought me for my birthday several years ago.
That was my finest present to you.
I have to wonder, though, if the whole Batman the Duck thing was someone sitting around and they heard that in Disney and they're like, huh. And then a couple of years later, Darkwing Duck appears. So, like, that was a pretty good idea.
That's a good point. I hadn't considered that.
I suppose we should probably get back to the events of the actual minute.
Yes. I had a question.
Bring it all around.
I had a question about Alfred as well that I never got to. Do you think Bruce has sent him to pick her up, right? Knowing that Bruce just doesn't really give a crap about his relationship? Or has Alfred decided to be a nice guy and just come and pick her up off his own back?
Well,
because he says, I thought champagne would be more, ma'am. He doesn't say Bruce thought, I thought.
Yeah. I think this whole thing is very suspicious to me, because Vicky's walking quietly down, she looks up the signal, and then it turns out she just sort of like, oh, yeah, looks behind her, and Alfred's been there like the whole time. And it's like, why is he just standing? Is this like, will the Batman pick all this up from Alfred? It's just like, I like to slink in the shadows and wait for people to notice me.
Well, I mean, he does. I mean, The only reason they're even together is because of Alfred. He brings her into the Batcave without him knowing he's going to do it. So, I mean, Alfred's the one pushing the two of them together. So I could almost see Alfred saying to Bruce, "Oh, you're going out to catch criminals tonight. Maybe I should pick up Vicki and have her, waiting for you." And he's like, "Oh yeah, good idea, Alfred. Sure." And Alfred's like, "All right, let me, spruce this up, get her the champagne, get her the car, and I'm gonna keep doing my
100%. He's trying to hook them up, so he drops this whole Batman thing. He's like, "I just want you to have some kids, and it'll be nice. It'll be a lovely home, a nice family."
I can imagine though the whole thing is still a disaster though. Like the reason Batman's out tonight because Bruce is huffing. Because Alfred's like, "Is Vicki Vale?" Like, "Alfred, I'm not interested in Vicki, all right? Leave it." He's like, "Damn it, Master Wayne, I'm bringing Vicki Vale." "No, you do that, Alfred. I'm going out to be Batman for a while." He storms out of the house, and Alfred's like, "No, I'm going to get the royals ready," and just heads out to go pick her up. And then I still don't understand, why is he just hiding back in the shadows? Why hasn't he been like, "Oh, hello, miss"? It's just like standing waiting for her. How long would he have let her walk away? Until he's just like, "I better like beep the horn or something, just so she knows I'm here."
Well, that was never really. It's funny. It would be great in sort of like our own little our own little imagination, but that was never the Michael Goff, right? Michael Goff, Alfred. That was never even a thing. This was such a poorly or weakly developed character. I mean, he never really showed any real agency or opinion about Bruce as Batman, as opposed to when you get to the Dark Knight series where Michael Caine's Alfred was constantly like, "You really should be doing this. You're going to get your butt kicked. You should," a little more critical of it.
You say that though, like us analyzing it minute by minute, we have noticed a lot of he is not in favor of any of this, and like we've noticed
it's more subtle though than Michael Caine.
Yeah. Very much like the fact that he's, from the beginning, from when Vicki showed up in Wayne Manor, he was always like, "I'm going to hook these two up. I'm going to get them together." And he does have a moment of like, "I have no interest in spending my few remaining years grieving for old friends or their sons." And you can tell there's a moment where he's very, very like, "I am so pissed off at this whole Batman routine." Like he's not saying it, but you get that that's what's going on. And it's, I think that it's just more his sort of doubt in in the whole crusade and the wanting more for Bruce is there. It's just not as laid bare as "I won't bury another Batman Master Wayne," all that business that Michael Caine ends up doing. So
I do prefer it when Alfred is vocally against, not like aggressively, but when he's voicing his opinion that this is stupid. Because let's be honest, it's pretty stupid. It's a pretty crazy thing to be doing.
He basically raised Bruce, so I mean he's essentially his surrogate father, and this is what a surrogate father. I mean, if 20 years from now one of my kids is going out to be Batman, and I think he's risking his life, ridiculous, I'm going to say, "What the hell are you doing? You're stupid. You're going to get yourself killed."
I'd be more worried that would get me killed. I was like, "Hey, I've seen what happens to Batman's parents. Let's. Are you sure you don't want to try to go into customer service?"
Look at that. That's in Batman Begins. The whole when like he meets up with Bruce and he's just like, "I'm assuming that this mask is to to prevent reprisals." And it's like, "Oh, you're thinking about Rachel, Alfred?" "Well, no, so I was thinking more of myself." It's like
it's a good thing to think about, because what's the most logical? Once you find out who Batman is, who are you going to go for? Go for Alfred. Yeah. Easy target.
We should mention as well, though, we would be remiss if we did not mention this car. Apparently, because I've looked it up on the Internet Movie Car Database, this is a Rolls-Royce Silver Wraith, apparently. It is featured in several hundred movies, including Witness with Harrison Ford, Get Carter with Michael Caine, obviously, so Batman connection right there.
Everything's connected.
In King Ralph, with the classic King Ralph with John Goodman. And, of course, the even more classic Bean the Movie with Rowan Atkinson. I think we mentioned, Rowan Atkinson was in consideration for Knox at one point. So, there you go. That's a weird connection. Yeah, well, apparently so. That's what IMDb says anyway. But there's a lot of these people they've listed as, these were supposed to be in the movie. And you're like, I don't buy this, man. No, I think you're
also, what does consideration mean? Like somebody, at one point, Rowan Atkinson is like, I'd be interested in doing that, and there was never any follow-up call.
It could have been like literally at a production meeting these were names written down in a post-it note, and then like they were just, lost in archives until recently. And someone was like, "Oh, apparently Daniel Day-Lewis was up for playing Commissioner Gordon or something stupid like that."
I could see him playing Knox though. It'd be a bit of a different character, but I think he would suit the movie quite well. Because I mean, we've seen. I don't know if all of his stuff's gone over to the US, but in the UK, obviously he's mainly a comedic actor, but he can do like a wide range of things. So I think he would work quite well in a Tim Burton.
I don't think I've ever seen him do an American accent though. I think that might be the barrier that's preventing me from seeing him. It's like, I don't know, Rowan Atkinson is an American.
Well, why doesn't he just play an Englishman who's moved to America?
I suppose he could.
And then he doesn't have to do an accent.
Yeah, that's true enough. But
I don't know if 1989 America would have been able to handle the British butler and the British reporter in the same movie.
Too much at once. Well, that's my theory. It's probably nonsense. It's just something I decided on when the trailer came out for The Force Awakens. No, not the trailer. When we first saw clips of it, sorry. And John Boyega was doing an American accent. I was thinking to myself, why is he doing an American accent, but Daisy Ridley's not? And the only thing I could come up with was, I think they just don't want two leads with the British accent. They just like the actor, but
I can just imagine though, like in the early days of The Force Awakens, though, this Daisy Ridley coming in, trying out her accent, like, "Hi guys, I'm playing Rey," and they're like, "Oh god, every day when it's
God.
No. Oh, you want to? Rey's English now. It's okay. Right? Apparently, Rey is very proper, classy, upper crust English. All right, that's the accent you're going for."
Yeah. It's another world. It's fine. You can have any accent.
One person who's doing actually a good accent, and I swear, like I've watched interviews with her, and obviously in doing this show, who you would know is Kim Basinger, because she's got like a real Southern twang when she talks normally, and she'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm in the Batman movie and all this," and like then you see her as Vicki Vale, you wouldn't know. It was just like it was insane to actually see interviews with her. Because I did look in because it's the last minute with Vicki. I thought, like, what are Kim Basinger's actual thoughts on the character? And so I got a few quotes from her here. The first one, Tim Burton calls this the Phantom of the Opera for the 80s. And believe you me, I felt like I was in the sewer half the time. Which is, but she was joking about it. She was kind of like laughing as she said it and stuff. And I think she was more talking about, like, she went on then to say, oh, it's like being in a surrealist painting, a part of like a really crazy fantasy. So she was just more taken aback by the sheer scale and vision of it. And her whole interpretation of at the end is the character. She said that she was the light that was between the grounding light of the movie between the darkness of the Joker and the darkness of Batman. And then she
that's like what I said when she walked in dressed in white.
Yeah, no, there you go. And actually calling back to one of her earlier minutes, because she says, like, oh, she's like a girl who can stand with a bowl of popcorn watching these two boys going at it, and then eventually throw the popcorn aside to go, look, this is crazy and stuff. And there's a scene where she's standing watching them with a bowl of popcorn, so maybe that's what she's referring to. So, yeah. And then, apparently she says, like, at this point, she doesn't believe that Vicki cares about anything anymore because she's so enamored with Bruce Wayne. She said at this point she doesn't care about photojournalism. She doesn't care that he's Batman. She just loves Bruce Wayne. Which is nice until you see the next movie and she ain't there anymore. So,
well, that's why I think she knows it won't work. Like, because obviously Alfred says, Mr. Wayne told me to tell you that he might be a little late. Of course, she says, I'm not a bit surprised. Like, see, to me, that's saying how if they stay in a relationship, that's how it's always going to be. It's going to be like that every day. You don't know when you're going to see him, if you're going to see him. Might even come home. Who knows?
And he's not even the one telling her he's going to leave. He's having his butler do it for him.
Yeah. He just messes her around all movie.
She's a significant woman with a successful photojournalist career, which, by the way, doesn't really lead itself well to being home at 5. So how long can also, aside from being one of the most beautiful women on the planet, perhaps not the person most likely to be waiting around for him to show up.
Yeah.
When they show the photos that she's taken, she's all over the country, some of the most dangerous places in the world. So, yeah, it's just not going to work, and we probably should have seen it coming. I know people wanted her to come back for the sequel, but also the story's a bit told, and and also the Catwoman story sort of worked better without that sort of romantic competition.
Yeah, if it was just like a love triangle, I wouldn't have been as interested. We've seen that. We've done that.
Yeah, I am very much because we'll be obviously doing returns in a couple of months. We'll be neck deep in it, and I do think like as much as I've grown to love Vicki Vale through doing this, Selina Kyle and Bruce Wayne is the relationship you want to see. Like that's the much meatier, much more intricate, detailed thing. So.
But for now, we're enjoying this, Niall. Don't ruin the moment with the champagne and everything.
It's like, we're finally get to scrape Vicki off her shoe here and get into the real stuff.
No. Raise a glass as she exits. Champagne for everyone. In fact, I have a question about champagne, right? Are you a fan? I enjoy it plenty, but is it that much nicer than Italian Prosecco, which is like, like much, much, much cheaper? It's not that much nicer. It's a little bit nicer.
Say, not a fan of any sparkling wine. That's not too sweet, too bubbly for me. Don't like that. Don't like that sensation of drinking it.
Niall.
Not for me. No.
I am a beer guy. If I'm not drinking beer, I'm usually drinking whiskey or vodka. Those are sort of my other go-tos. Something you can sip.
That's literally last night for me. I had all three of them.
I'm going to do a little aside here to the audience. Countdown to John mentioning an old-fashioned in 5, 4, 3.
So who's a fan of old-fashions?
I am. I like old-fashions.
My number one cocktail.
I think I've seen them pop up. They popped up in your Facebook feed recently again. I was just like, here he goes. Here he goes again with the old-fashions.
Oh, yeah, photo of me with the drink. I forgot about that.
I saw online the other day a recipe for Jack and Coke popsicles.
Oh, yeah. I'm digging that. That'll be nice.
Yeah. You just walk down the street. No one knows.
I would love it if Alfred just offered her one of those instead of champagne. He just turned around with one in his hand. Popsicle, mom.
Anything. Just like, are you ready for your Jell-O shot?
Yeah. It's just like tequila slammers there.
Like, I thought a bottle of Jägermeister might be in order.
Sambuca.
See, what I'm thinking though is like, darting around all what we've all been saying is that like, the writing's on the wall for this relationship, and maybe Vicki doesn't know it's going to work out, and maybe Bruce doesn't know it's going to work out, and then we've got Alfred slinking about in the shadows. It could be that like we don't see Vicki next movie. Alfred's there to kill her. Like this is him. He's hiding back. And then it's just like, I thought champagne was an order miss. He's just going to bludgeon her with that bottle. That's the entire...
Don't go into the basement of Wayne Manor.
And all of a sudden, it's just like, at the end of this is like Alfred driving down the street and Vicki jumps out of the car. And just like running down like an alleyway. You just see Alfred just pursuing her with this bottle ready to give her a crack in the skull. And that's the end of Vicki Vale.
And he's wearing that mask that Alfred on the old Adam West TV show would put on when he would help them out. That literally just covered his eyes, but he was still in his entire butler outfit. But
actually, in in terms of this last we see of Vicki in the movies, God knows if they'll remedy that soon. She might pop up again, but in future incarnations of Batman. But within the comics, one of the most notable things is that she went on after this film came out. In the early 2000s, she became one of the hosts of a television program in Gotham, similar to The View, called The Scene. So essentially, I guess Vicki became Gotham's Rosie O'Donnell, basically in the comics. If that's the way I'm supposed to take that.
Well, it's sort of a problem that they've always had with the Batman comic book character, where they have never been able to. They've had a hard time giving Batman in the comics a Lois Lane-esque character. They've tried Vicki Vale, Silver St. Cloud, Talia al Ghul, and the closest they've come to is Catwoman. And I know right now in the comics they actually have Batman and Catwoman engaged, which I don't know why they keep doing this. Where hey, we want to get our main character married, and then they spend the next 20 years trying to unmarry their main character because they realize that it doesn't work great.
Yeah. I guess it's just one of those things though they have to do. Like every couple of years it's like, hey, we're killing Wolverine, and everyone's just like, so how long is it until you bring him back? It's like, oh no, he's dead for real this time. Like, yeah, right. It's like Batman and Catwoman are getting married. For how long? Like, how long is this going to happen?
It's exactly like wrestling. I think I've said that before. It's identical to when a wrestler retires or there's a wrestling wedding. It's exactly the same.
Well, when you bring that up, there was I've heard an interview with Jim Cornette, who was like a pro wrestling manager, one of the guys who would talk up the matches, and I think it was him that said that there's a cycle in wrestling. They expect the fans to cycle out every 7 years. So wait 7 years and you can just do the exact same story again. It's similar with comics, where especially now comics industry has changed, where they are trying to hold on to their fans. But once upon a time, the idea was you would get a comic book fan when they're 10, 11, 12 years old, and you would hold on to them until they were 15, 16, 17. So you would have that 7 years, and then you could just cycle through the same stories. Bring back Dr. Octopus again. Bring back Dr. Doom again. Don't worry that you killed them off. Don't worry that they got blown up or whatever. The people didn't read that far back. But now that people are fans longer, and also because we're in an era where you can go onto Wikipedia and look up Dr. Doom and see that he's been killed off 18 times. And
thank God that's the case, though, because it helps the show.
Well, also look at Alfred. Alfred Pennyworth in the comics was killed off 50 years ago, and they just waited 5 years to bring him back. And because they realized the status quo is what works, and not having Alfred in the comic didn't work, because it was always great to have Alfred, because he was the guy who, when Batman would be explaining what happened or who the bad guy was, he would say it to Alfred, and he was that great piece of exposition. And then the writers could have fun with, having Alfred make some sort of withering remark, is like, as he does. So.
But then we get as Vicki sitting in the back seat, Alfred does lean back to say, like, "Oh, Master Wayne told me to tell you that he might be a little late," which is just like, he's up in Batman. I'm assuming he's going to be out all night. It's going to be like 5 a.m. by the time he shows up.
You never know. He might patrol the streets. There's nothing happening. He calls it a night early. No, he's not the sort who calls it a night.
Well, there is a bat signal.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Is the bat signal... No, that's them testing it out, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's only there for...
you're right.
But isn't that confusing for Batman? It's like...
No, I guess he knows. It's the only time it's been turned on. So
Well, maybe Gordon told him we're going to test it out. Yeah. Gordon's like, we got to test this out, make sure it reaches up into the sky.
They've got the whole business ahead of them, though. The fact that it's down in the street now, and then it's like, oh yeah, we gotta haul this up to like the top of a building or something. Now this is gonna be a pain in the ass. This bat signal.
Well, one thing I notice about the bat signal is that was the old style bat signal where it perfectly shows a signal in the sky on the clouds, and obviously animated over it as it would happen in the old TV show. As now in the more recent movies, it's become a little more realistic, for using an insane term for these movies, but now it's sort of, you look at the clouds, it's like, I can sort of see a bat. Okay, I get where they're coming from.
Yeah.
The Nolan movies were like that, where the bat signal didn't look like this perfectly drawn image on the clouds, because that's not what it would look like.
I kind of like that visual. In the next Batman, he should just have a special phone, and he just gets text messages off like Gordon. like, oh, quick, there's an emergency.
They did do that in the Dark Knight, doesn't he? He's somehow Batman's able to text Gordon during the whole hospital bit of going, like, naming the people are.
Oh, yeah, he does. So. Oh, God, they have done that then. I was joking. Yeah. I don't want that.
Because eventually we'd just have the scene where he accidentally sends a sext to Commissioner Gordon. It's like, oh, that wasn't meant for you.
Of course, then, though, we do get the last line of the movie, then, from Vicki Vale. Again, what's the meaning behind that, though? Is this her sort of accepting the fate of, like, yep, he's going to be up in Batman, so I'm not surprised that he's just left me sitting with the butler, and I guess you should be saying, like, this is... Because then this scene is mirrored at the end of Batman Returns, when you have Bruce and Alfred, and Bruce has also got another love interest has disappeared on him. And it's just the two of them sitting driving home in the snow together. And it's actually a bit lonely and melancholic. But, so, I guess Tim Burton, he did definitely have an arc for Batman planned out in that regard. I'm like, no, this man's obsession is going to lead him to nothing but loneliness, essentially. Even when he tries to hook up with Catwoman, it never work and whatnot.
That's the Batman curse. It can only lead to that, really.
Can you guys, between you think you could name the other ending lines of any of the Batman movies? Do they stick in your head at all? Or
I was just going to say, all I really remembered was with the third and fourth movies, they decided to have the closing montage just the bat signal, and then Batman and Robin, or in the fourth movie, Batman, Robin, and Batgirl just running silhouetted by the bat signal. And that was a thing where, and of course it got pretty bad by the fourth movie, where nobody liked or cared about Batgirl, that character, as if this was supposed to be an inspiring moment, as instead of an indication that this franchise had gone completely off the rails.
Then Returns, I believe, is the goodwill towards all men and women, as Bruce says in the back of the car. And then the fourth one is the cringe and do thing, because Batgirl's here now, and then Alfred goes, "We're going to need a bigger cave." And it's like,
oh yeah, that was in the trailer. That line was in the trailer for the movie. I remember that line. Sure.
That's a bit of a spoiler, I think.
That's weird. The Nolan ones are weird though, because they have two great ending lines, and then because I think the first one's that whole Gordon going "Oh, I never said thank you," and Batman going, "And you'll never have to." Great line to end the movie on. The second one, Dark Knight, obviously ends on the whole, a silent guardian, a watchful protector, a dark knight. And you're like, hey! And then the last line of The Dark Knight Rises is can't have a string of pearls going missing on the manifesto. And it's like, what? That was your last line of the whole trilogy? Jesus.
What a great finale line, yeah.
Just sort of shows, the Nolan movies are obviously a completely different beast. It sort of shows where what happened with it's almost a good indicator of the Nolan movies, whereas the first two movies have these great ends, and then the third, it just sort of falls flat, as if that's sort of a good summation of those movies. Okay, because Real started great, fantastic middle, ended a little flat. Not terrible, just a little flat.
Yeah. Because again, Rises does have the end shot is a bit ooh, because it's it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt discovering the Batcave. But even then, it leaves you more of a kind of like he's gonna be Batman now. It's how would he know how to work any of this stuff?
That's a good point, actually.
Bruce Wayne's supposed to be a genius. He's just some cop.
Yeah.
How is he gonna get in the Batsuit and been able to work out all this crap? He doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, he's just an above-average cop, as opposed to Bruce Wayne spending his entire adult life training to become Batman and still getting his butt kicked. It's how's a guy an orphan just going through police academy going to pick up that mantle?
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy leap to make. It's a great shot until you start thinking about it.
Yeah, I guess just to say that, Alfred begins the drive off, and we start to raise up through the towers of Gotham, as it were. We do see briefly in the background there's a small American flag, which is a thing, I guess you can say it's a bit of a superhero movie trope, because I guess End of Superman 2 is him flying the roof of the White House back on and fixing the American flag, and ended all the Raimi Spider-Man movies, American flags up to Watusi. You couldn't get away from those freaking things. And then this one's Burton's a bit more low-key. It's
well, especially Spider-Man, because that happened around 9/11. It was New York, so they I think there was just a little bit more in the States. There was a little more of a patriotism thing with the Spider-Man films, because that was just sort of a nationwide cultural thing.
Yeah, it always has the business of consistently portraying New York as a bit of a hellhole, but then hey, you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us, and the people always coming to the Spider-Man's aid when he needed them and whatnot. So I'm tapped out for notes as well, but I guess the question would be now, fellas, you kind of got a little bit into it there earlier, but do you, between you, have any fond memories of seeing this for the first time, or any particular history of the movie you want to divulge?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I wasn't into Batman when this movie came out that much. I really only knew the Adam West TV show. I was a Marvel Comics guy, but so I was in 8th grade when the hype started for this movie. And I got completely wrapped up to it. A lot of my friends got wrapped up into it. I remember driving through Times Square and the giant famous billboard that was just the bat signal. And it said just June 20, whatever it did. And that was it. That was the whole thing. And seeing that, and I was like, whoa, that looks just so awesome. I bought a Batman t-shirt. I started collecting the Batman comic books even before the movie came out. I just got so wrapped up in the hype. And, it was at that point, the only thing we really had was the Superman movies. There wasn't anything else to see as a comic book fan. So here was something a new character other than Superman that was coming out. And I saw it. My dad took me to see it opening weekend, and he's not into comic books or anything like that. And he thought it was a great movie too. So I loved it immediately. I've seen the movie a million times, and I remember in the movie, these two girls were sitting behind us, and they were talking through the whole friggin' movie. And finally, my dad turns around, and he tells them to shush, and they said, "F you" to him.
Oh my gosh!
And this is one of those times in my life I wish I could go back and and I would then turn around and just start ripping into him. And as like a 12-year-old, just start saying, "Yo, don't talk to my dad that way." They did actually shut up the rest of the movie, but I always got angry that I let that you to my dad go by.
Right.
Oh, that's the thing. Even if you say something and they shut up, you're still furious about it for the whole movie. It ruins the whole. You sat there like, how dare they? How dare they do that?
For me, what I just remember about this is there was so much excitement for it, and I had been into comic books already, and it was such a crazy thing that and Eric sort of alluded to this. Everyone started showing up at high school wearing Batman shirts, and it was just astounding to me. It's like, oh my God, everyone's wearing. And folks, nowadays you see superhero shirts all over the place, and they can be done really obvious, where it's like there's a picture of Hulk next to Thor, next to Captain America, or it could be someone just wearing a shirt that has a Green Lantern logo, and it's a little subtle, so if you're not into it, you don't know what it is. But back then, that just didn't happen, and I was so excited about it because it's like, oh, I could sort of let my comic book fan flag fly. And I remember I got a Batman shirt that was drawn. It was drawn by Brian Boland, probably best known for being the artist on The Killing Joke. So it shows how important this is, because I actually remember the name of the artist who drew the picture that was on my shirt. I love the movie. What's really stunned me watching the movie was it was so much funnier than I expected it to be. And you got a lot more laughs. Now, part of it is you can get really easy laughs when you have a dark, brooding movie, and then everything that's even a little funny all of a sudden comes across as hilarious. And the Joker's bits in it were so funny because it was this dark, bleak movie, and then Jack Nicholson playing this sort of scenery chewing, colorful character. And I was just stunned how funny and enjoyable the film was. The action stuff was solid. Sort of like we said, Michael Keaton couldn't move around too well as Batman, but but they were able to do that just right. The one thing, and I'm sure you guys have talked about this. The one thing that was always funny was the scene where he's in the bell tower, he's being attacked by all the different guys, and you have the guy flipping towards him, and Batman holds out his hand, and that sort of extender pops out of his hand. Nobody had any idea what that was because the angle is terrible.
Even we didn't go minute by minute.
It was just a really exciting movie. I saw it so many times. I remember the third or fourth time I saw it in a second run movie theater that only played two movies, and it was like $2 a ticket. And it was playing the same time as Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And I remember the kids who were working there said, it's like, well, there's 80 people in to see Batman. And this was months after the movie came out. There's 80 people to see Batman, and there's 12 people to see Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which was a successful movie. But it just shows you how heads and shoulders this was over everything else. It was just it was really a cultural event. And it was really fun to be a part of. And even movies that are successful now, I saw Black Panther is the closest I could say to it, where comic book movies now come out, and they come out 3-4 times a year between all the studios, and everyone's happy about them. But there's not this singular excitement where all this where everyone's excited and there's all the anticipation. Even the first Avengers had it because that was different, because it was everyone together, and Black Panther had it because it was a black superhero directed by a black director with a 90% black cast. People were really excited about it from that perspective. But Batman was really something special, and it was fun seeing that happen from sort of start to finish. I remember when I remember them announcing Michael Keaton, and I remember seeing all the way to seeing the movie. It was really special.
Oh, yeah, that must have been exciting because it was quite a gamble in a way. Coming off what was Superman 4 would have been one of the most recent superhero movies.
Yeah, I think Superman 4 was that was the most recent. Yeah.
So knowing that was the last sort of thing in people's minds with superhero movies, it's a gamble in a way, spending that much money on
a director
like
who
this.
never had a big hit, and an actor who was known for comedy. It was ballsy.
Yeah, my only other comment is I think Jack Nicholson to this day got hosed out of a nomination for an Oscar. Wow. I prefer him. I know this is not the thing to say these days, but I prefer him to Heath Ledger's Joker.
No, I can see that being the case. Yeah,
fair enough. I suppose everyone's got their.
Yeah,
I'm sure we've made arguments about how great this Joker is. So yeah.
Oh, well, before we head off into the dark night, would you two like to tell our good listeners where they can find you and your work online?
Okay. We are at Flash Gordon Minute. Our shows are posting now, so we have begun. Go to growlermedia.com/Flash Gordon. That's GROWLER media.com/Flash Gordon. We're also on iTunes or anywhere else you get your podcasts from. On Facebook, you can come chat with us, the Flash Gordon Minute Listeners Vortex. You can email us, flashgordonminute@gmail.com. And we're on Twitter, Flash Gordon Pod.
Yeah, make sure to check it out because it's great. I started listening from minute 1, minute 0 technically, and it's fantastic. I haven't seen the movie in quite a while, and I was gonna rewatch it recently, and I thought, no, you know what? I won't. I'll listen to the podcast first. So I'm listening to it. Yeah, it'll be interesting to listen to the show and then go back and watch the movie again. It'll be fun.
Like listening every minute, but like, what? Oh, this movie sounds so lame.
And make sure to check us out, which I'm sure you probably have already if you've listened this far.
If you're coming in on this minute, that's a weird way to go about things, let me tell you.
Yeah, you might have some problems, but yes, give us a look. We're on Facebook. We have the Batminute 89 Listeners Society. Boring name, I know. And we're on Twitter at Batminute89. And rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes as well. In fact, we have 2 new reviews, Niall. I won't read them out because it's a bit vain. But thank you to our 2 new reviewers. We have Georgie9921. So thank you, Georgie. And we also have, I'm going to read this whole thing because it's insane, Gareth54898643219979065. So thank you to you, Gareth. And join us again. We will be back. Niall, what day is this? What day is this episode?
It's Friday, John. It's
Friday? Friday. Join us again on Monday because we will be back with more Batman and we will have minute 118. See you then.
Next time, a tower-topping titan looming over the city and ready to fight the good fight. Gotham's watchful protector and silent guardian stands before a dark night. But as we bid the film adieu, which of Gotham's bit players will get the credit they are due? Find out next week. Same Bat Pod, different Bat Minute.